All right. Thanks for tuning in again. Another episode here. Got Dylan here with us again today. Sam as well. Where did we leave off last time?
So Dylan had joined. He was coming, I think, on occasion up to the facility, up to your small facility.
Yep.
I think that's pretty much where we left off, right?
Yeah, small facility, dude. That was 3,000 square feet. That was huge at the time.
Huge facility at the time.
It was. When we moved in, dude, remember when we moved in? There was like 4
Massive.
pallets on the ground, and looking around, I'm like, well, I think we might have overkilled it here. But
Dude, we should.
Can you put pictures on
Yeah, dude,
there?
I can insert
have
some.
pictures of
That'd be
like
sick.
when we first moved in to when we moved out. Like how insane it, like the drastic
so
change it was.
what was the time frame on that between moving?
We
and
moved
moving
in
out?
July 2020. Yep, and then we moved out in.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, it is. I have pictures on my phone.
July 2020 was at Dad still.
You want me to prove what? Here,
No,
we'll prove
you don't
it.
have
It's
to
on.
prove a
It's
point.
on camera too.
But the time span of it from like when we moved in to the point of like moving out, I'd probably say like a year and a half.
That's pretty fast.
Well,
Yeah.
when
Well,
I
we
mean,
moved
fast,
in. We
but-
moved into this building in
October 2021.
September 21.
Right, so a year and a half, almost 2 years. Almost 2 years we're in that building. Damn, it doesn't feel that long.
Yeah.
It does not feel that long. I remember too that conversation with Vern, Dylan?
Oh, I remember Vern.
Vern was
Quite well.
Vern was our landlord, and he was one of the main property owners here in Green Bay, and
Old dude, probably like
Super
in his
old.
80s. Owns his family, owned a construction business. Like he knew his shit. Like he was sharp as a tack
Yeah.
yet. Like
He was
for
second
being 80 years
generation.
old. Yeah.
and
Okay.
his son. I mean, he was old to where his son was old. So, you know.
Yeah, that's how you know you're old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Vern, I remember it. This was pre-Dylan moving in or
Okay.
Dylan coming on, and I'm talking over negotiations. Damn, it was 2020.
We didn't even have pallets. It was literally just
Show Sam.
boxes on the floor. We rented a forklift to get all this stuff off our dad's trailer.
If photos weren't added yet, we'll add
wow.
photos just so you guys can see it because I think that's a huge impact because I want people to be able to see.
listeners,
Yeah.
um,
Tune in.
imagine your college dorm room, and you don't know what to do with the boxes, so you line them all up against the wall.
That's exactly what we
Well, we
did.
didn't have any rackets.
Where else are we
And,
supposed to put them?
And there's nothing in the middle.
Nothing.
It's just empty space.
All
yeah.
this room for activities.
It's probably like maybe large enough to fit like 2 basketball courts side by side. Maybe.
Oh no.
I don't think it wasn't that big. So the
No.
But
just
there's
the
like a
warehouse
pole in it,
part,
so.
just the warehouse part of it was 2,800 square feet.
Yeah.
The total space we were renting was like a tick over 3,000 square feet with the
Okay.
offices.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was a overhead door, service door, and then one loading dock.
So and it took you 2 years to fill that up.
Well, we actually filled it up pretty fast, like, which was relieving. So, like, here, dude, I have some pretty awesome pictures here. Like, there's when we were moving in. We didn't have the sign up yet, but there it is.
That's our first assembly line.
Look at fulfilling orders. There's
Wow.
It's a table.
Yeah, it's sort
no,
of
it's not even a
it's
table.
like a
it's like
cabinet.
it's a cubby
It's a
shelving. It's like a cubby where you put your stuff because the place used to be a CrossFit gym. So like it was like a cubicle where they would put their shoes and stuff like that they left over that we tipped on its side and used it as a table.
It's like a kindergarten cubby where
Yeah.
you put your shoes
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, where you
Pretty
put your
much.
shoes and your
Put your
lunchbox and
backpack.
stuff. Dane
Yeah.
had his lunchbox and everything in there.
Yeah.
So how many? God, this is so weird to see because there's just like a handful of casters in each one, and now you walk out there and there's
So-
bins of them.
So now that's what we were saying when we were counting inventory. It's something you could do in an hour because you could just walk like right around your office and count the
Look how
inventory.
many seats there are. Was there 5 seats?
Right. So like
where are
okay,
the rest of them?
That's it. That was that
that
was
was
the
all.
seats.
That was all the seats,
I
dude.
see an American flag on one of them.
This is reminiscing on some old times, but
I don't know what that is, but
crappy
That was
competition.
left over.
So talking with Vern, he's the landlord, and he owns the entire building. It's cut up into like 4 different sections. We had the smallest section, and again, this was just me. This was at the point where Dylan was still, coming in after work.
Yep.
And he asked what we were doing and what our project was. And I told him a little bit about the electrical motors, and I said, hey, we're starting to get some sales for the Viper chairs. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what's a Viper chair? So I explained it to him. I'm like, hey, we had that chair there, and I'm like, okay, take this cheap China-made chair.
Yeah.
And I showed him a picture of ours. I'm like, it's American-made. It's got huge casters, super comfortable seat, prevents tipping, helps with back. At this point, we didn't have a backrest, but I showed him everything. And he asked me how much it was. And I'm like, right now it's about $450. And he looks me in the eyes. He's like, I don't think that's going to sell. Therefore, we're going to go month to month for rent. He's like, I don't want to do a year contract.
Rent is always month to month, but there was no agreement. Like, typically you sign a lease agreement, you're signing a 5-year lease or whatever.
Yeah, a 2-year, 5-year, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he didn't want to do a 1-year lease. He wanted to do a month-to-month lease because if we didn't make it, it wasn't on him then to find a new fill it up. That right there was like fuel for us.
I think it still is.
It still is.
Yeah.
To this day, like I think of that.
Ignorance at its finest.
Yeah, really.
Do you have any words you'd say to Vern right now?
Thank you. Seriously, thank you for providing that that like grain of energy that I've gone back to years and years and years again. So we're at the point. Dylan's coming in. Dylan, I'm pretty sure we left off. Dylan was you left your full-time job now, right?
Yep. Pulled the trigger. Slept on it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Lost a lot of sleep on it.
Sold all your toys.
Stole all my toys, boats, snowmobiles. I mean, I had, like I said, I had a good paying engineering job. You know what I mean? I had all the fun stuff. Was doing every weekend. My wife and I were going somewhere, doing something fun, doing something cool. I had a brand new truck. Like, that's another thing I didn't even mention in the last one. I literally just got this truck on top of the house. I think I bought the house, in 2020 as well. Ended up getting rid of the truck too, traded it in for just a lesser of a truck. Basically, I was eliminating all my debt.
Yeah.
Right? So anything I owed money on, anything that would cause a problem, that would drag me down financially, I had to cut ties with. That's what I did. I got rid of all of it. Right? So basically, all I had was a mortgage payment that obviously my wife and I shared. So that was literally the only.
It's a pretty smart way to do it.
Yeah, the only responsibility I had, right? And I mean, you kind of have to do that, especially when you're jumping into something like this. There's so many unknown variables and so much uncertainty. Like, don't strap yourself, because what would happen is if you wouldn't do that and you still had all your stuff, you would panic, right? And then you would go to Plan B. And then, right?
Just go back to what you were doing before because you know it's safe or
exactly.
whatever.
Like I said before, where you know it's comfortable, right? Like I didn't even really have a plan B. Like, like I mentioned before, I could get another job or whatever, but like I didn't want that to be an option. I wanted to work for ourselves, you know? Like we wanted to start something, and I never even would call it a plan B. Like, it was always in the back of my head, but it's like it would literally be life or death scenario for me to have to do that. You know what I mean? I'm like, we're going to do, once I make the jump, like Dave and I are one of those people, like once we commit to something, it's, we're balls deep. We're, I mean, okay, maybe that was a poor word choice, but when we commit to something, we're into it.
How deep is that?
Well, for me, pretty deep.
Yeah. Dude's got to have a big truck.
Huge truck.
Dude's got to have a big truck.
It's funny. We just had that conversation the other day. And
there's no correlation.
One of the new employees yesterday, Dale and I were having a whole conversation about like some Father's Day script ideas, and like some dick jokes started popping up, and we're sitting in his office like. Cracking jokes back and forth. And the brand new employee, the accountant, is like,
can hear her giggling
right
in the
outside
office.
the door. She's like, what?
Yeah.
You ever think you'd be talking with your boss about dicks?
No.
So, go back to what Dylan was saying. If he wouldn't have sold all of his stuff, it would have put the company in a bad spot too at that early stages, because he would have all this overhead this personal overhead
Mm-hmm.
that the company would have to be responsible for because he's going to be like, hey, I have all this shit I need to pay for. I need to get paid. And
Right.
at that point, the company wasn't making money to where we could pay it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you almost had to.
Yeah, and I mean, to put it in perspective, like from what I sold all that stuff for, you know, all my toys, that's what I lived on until we started getting paid from Viper, which was well over a year before we started getting paid from Viper, and it wasn't very much. Like Day and I sat down. Yeah, it was well over a year. Day and I sat down, figured out, okay, what are our monthly expenses, right?
Personal.
What are our monthly? Yeah, right. What are our monthly personal expenses? What do we need to live? Like, we're frugal people, right? Like resourceful. I always think when we first hired you, you came in my office, you had something broken or whatever. You're like, you seem to be a resourceful person. Any ideas how I can fix this? And I think I fixed it.
Yeah.
And like, so I pride myself and Dane too is being resourceful or bootstrapping it or frugal or tight asses, whatever you want to call it. But
Squeak when you walk.
sometimes I think so. We got that from our dad. So like, like a little birdie. Cheep, 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 cheep. Only the things that we can pinch pennies on though. Like if it's a warranted expense, absolutely we'll absolutely do it. But like even to this day, I think we run a pretty lean ship.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we're not spending
Stupidly.
Yeah, we're not like when we go through pricing and or like our expenses on a quarterly basis or whatever, and see what we can cut. There's not always a lot there to trim. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we have this, this, and this. Well, we need this. This is being used for that. Like,
I would say you guys are definitely like more responsible, and like I think anybody in a position should ask themselves like, you know, does the business need this, or can I get by with something cheaper, or what I'm already doing for the while?
or can I do it myself?
And I think that's what you guys do like the best. It's like, you know, I survived on those 3 lights that we had for a really long time, and then, you know, like once I showed you what we could do with a better light, then you're like, okay, I see it. We can use it for like the best possible thing. Like we're not just buying it to have it. Like we're buying it because like we need it now. You know, we can improve the marketing. You know, we can improve.
Well, you work your way into this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you
Correct,
you start with the stuff that you can afford. Yeah, the beginner stuff, and then as you grow and as you have more resources, you know, explore into the better products.
Yeah.
And stuff that you turn into really needing it, where it saves time. So now, before you were getting by with making it work, right? But then say the light that you brought up, now we have a better light, right? Costs much more, whatever, but it probably saved you time now in the long run.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
so like,
yeah. Big time.
It's definitely
And improves quality like tenfold.
Yeah, it depends at where you're at. You know what I mean? So like,
So 2 things on that. In the beginning, we didn't even buy anything. Luckily we had your father-in-law. Jeff had pretty much the dude's not necessarily even a hoarder. He just has everything. You know,
so he's got 2 of everything. Is
he's got
actually
2
what
of
he
it.
says.
Yeah. So
And if he doesn't have it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. So we were luckily enough able to have him at our side. Like, hey, we need a forklift or something. You'd be like, cool, you can borrow mine for a little bit. Or hey, we need racking. And obviously racking's super expensive if you want to get the new stuff. So he's like, hey, here's a bunch of rusted stuff that's been sitting outside. We're like, cool, we'll take it.
Yeah. So like we had a lot of friends and family that had, you know, that we used to buy stuff from and to get started, right? So like, yeah, Jeff, my father-in-law Jeff helped us out a ton, like not with just stuff we needed, but just labor too. Like he was always willing to come help us out. You know, same with our parents. Both our parents, whenever, were willing to come help us out. You know, and at the time, obviously we can't afford to pay anybody, so like it was just they were just donating their time, right? I mean, our mom still comes in and helps.
She was getting
for free, you know, like just to hang out and have fun.
Her wage was lunch.
Yeah. We would take her out for lunch when she came in. That was her wage, and you know, I think she loves spending time with her boys, and we loved it when she came in, and you know, we saw her too, and it was great. So, but yeah, I mean, we used a lot of local resources, friends and family, like Marty. Yeah, good buddy Marty. We bought a ton of pallet racking from him. You know, like that he had that he got at auction was laying around, and it was all rusty and wasn't that great. And he told me that, but I'm like, look, that's all we can afford at the time.
Yeah.
And I think if I remember correctly, it was like $500.
It was cheap.
And
well, he's like,
it was cheap, but at the time it was like I remember I had to go up to the ATM and get $500 out. I'm like, ooh, it took a
beating.
Took a beating. Had to bite out of the bank account.
Used the trailer. Went there. I remember it was
rainy and fucking
rainy and cold. We go in the back and we're picking up these heavy, slippery pallet racks after work. But I want to touch point on one thing that you mentioned too about buying new equipment and stuff. One thing that we got really good at is we would only buy equipment if there was a return that was noticeable, whether that's quality or a way that it's going to move the company forward, or decreasing costs, like if we can make something in-house. So like for the lights, for example, those lights...
Speed.
Yeah.
Time, too.
One,
so that's a big factor.
It increased your speed, your efficiency, the quality. So that overall it increases our brand image. So on social media, YouTube, etc. And it's funny you bring that up because just last night I was going through... So we must have bought that light in like sometime around November because I was looking at pictures in October. There's a noticeable difference of quality, like night and day difference. So it's like the return, you can see it on just the pictures and videos that you're creating, which and then yields a return for Viper in the future.
Yeah, I agree. It moves the brand forward towards something more professional or towards something more official, Yeah,
definitely.
Improves the quality of, all the media like created and whatnot. And I think after getting that light, I think we reshot all the product pictures, which are still on the website today.
Right. So that's one thing. In the beginning, we couldn't buy the best of the best. So we were just buying what we could afford. And we knew it wasn't the best of the best and it was probably going to fail. We just needed something to get us to that next point. We weren't investing in the nicest forklift or the nicest pallet racking or whatever it was. The conveyor, we got it from Smitty's, which is a auto salvage place here in
a scrapyard.
Yeah, a scrapyard.
Conveyor?
They called me Squeaky.
Squeaky because I don't know. Dane aged like probably 10 years during this this whole process, but he used to have a really squeaky, high pitched voice.
Well, no, he called me Squeaky because I was trying to bargain with him.
Oh, well, you did have a squeaky
voice
too.
we didn't have any money, and we needed a conveyor line, and there was an auto salvage place that was just a scrapyard.
Okay.
And I called him up, and this dude's like, to the point, he's old, doesn't want to beat around the bush.
He's a scrapper.
He's a
If
scrapper.
everybody has never dealt with a scrapper, you know what they're their own category of people.
So I call him, I'm like, hey man, I hear that you have some conveyors, and he's like, yeah. Seen a little bit, stop by, hangs up. I'm like, okay, sweet.
I guess I'm going to look at these conveyors.
So I go there. He brings me like 10 minutes away somewhere in Bellevue at this sketchy garage. And you go inside and there's just like a bunch of conveyors with spider webs and rust and all this. He's like, all right, which one do you want? I'm like, great. This is slim pickings, but I'll take whatever the newest one is. And then he's like, all right, we can do $800. I'm like, man, all I brought was $700. He's like, I knew you were going to do that, but I'll take it. And then ever since then, I called him back because we needed some more in the future. He's like, hey, Squeaky. Yeah. Like, shit. Damn it, I don't like that name. But like we knew we couldn't afford all the brand new stuff from Uline, like the new conveyors from there. So we're just like, what can we do that can just get us by to that next point? And then we can afford the nicer equipment.
I think there's a definite fine line between... Like, even when I look at camera equipment today, and granted, this isn't going to apply to everybody because it's camera equipment, but it applies in, like, certain fields. I look at stuff almost on, like a time frame. Like, how long is it going to be usable for, right? Like, cameras, camera bodies, like, they come and go, like, every single year there's a new one, right? But when it comes to, like, a C-stand, when it comes to sandbags, like, those things, we buy them once and they're good forever. And I almost look at investing in stuff as like, okay, is it just flashy new technology or like how long is this going to last me?
Definitely.
And like, I mean, conveyors, you guys still use the ones you picked up?
Still using them.
Still use them.
Still spider webs on them?
$700 investment, 2.5 or 3 years ago, and we're still using them today.
Good.
Like, so that's the thing is we could get all brand new conveyors out there, but okay, it's probably going to be $20,000. And is it something that we need to continue production? No, it's working fine how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
know?
Unless there's like you said before, unless there's a major increase in efficiency, or we need a big tax write-off or something like that. But
Yeah.
that's something you learn too as you start growing, getting more and more, buying more equipment, and sometimes you need to do stuff for taxes as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where we left off. So, like I said, I sold all my stuff, right? And Dana and I sat down. Yeah, we're to the point where we didn't get paid from Viper for well over a year, right? So finally, we were
Is
to
it
the point
just breaking even, or like slowly, sort of bleeding out the bank account, or
So that's the thing is like in the beginning, it's ebbs and flows with everything. Like Dylan was saying, oh, we'd go and take $500 out, and you'd see it take a dip, But then hopefully it comes swinging back around the other way. So that's what one thing with business is like. You really have to watch that cash flow because it's like a roller coaster. And if you make bad decisions when it's low, you could put yourself in a super bad spot.
I think, poor cash flow management is probably one of the biggest factors that cause early businesses to fail.
Definitely.
People don't know how to handle their cash. And you also have a lot of outside pressure of people wanting to sell you shit that you necessarily don't need. I mean, look at how many times we get contacted on a daily basis for selling stuff, like people wanting us to buy expensive stuff too. You know what I mean? And like if you're not resourceful enough, or if you don't know any better, you can get suckered into this stuff
which we have.
We have definitely
Many
have.
times.
So like you chalk that up as a learning experience. Fuck. Well, I spent a ton of money on that. Didn't pan out how I was hoping it would. I kind of got took for a fast one. Chalk that up as a tuition payment. We're not doing that again.
School of Hard Knocks.
School of Hard Knocks, exactly. But you just gotta. Do you really need it or do you want it? Right. That's basically what it comes down to. So, being what's the word I'm looking for? Responsible cash management. Be diligent. Right. Resourceful. Don't just go out and buy a bunch of shit just because you get excited because you got some money in your bank account now. Like Dane said, there's ebbs and flows. So as long as you're trending upward, that's obviously what you want.
Yeah.
But
if you're running a business similar to ours, you'll see the cash come in, but that's from the inventory you just sold. That's typically not 30. So the cash comes in, you might be like, oh damn, I'm riding the wave, but that bill's coming up that you don't see.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's in the books, it's in whatever accounting system that you use. But like, okay, so if you're up here and you think the cash looks good and you start buying a bunch of shit, okay, so now your bank account goes down and now you have to pay bills at a super low cash flow. That's extremely dangerous.
that's when you start sweating.
That's when you have many sleepless nights, and you sometimes like we went into this not knowing that either. And we've had scenarios where like that in the beginning where like that's how it is and that's how you learn from it. So
you said before on a previous podcast that like you knew if you sold like a chair a month, you could make rent. Is that sort of how it worked as you guys started working together? Like, okay, we need to sell 4 chairs to cover, like rent at the building, and then my personal expenses are X. Did you pay out like personal expenses or like pay yourself and then take care of personal expenses? Or did the personal expenses just continue to tick off of like a bank account or put on a credit card or something? For like the first year when Dylan was saying we didn't get paid, that all of our personal expenses were just coming out of our savings. Okay. Whatever we had personally saved up over the years. And
we were last, basically.
Yeah,
the company came first. Yeah. So whatever the company needed, we had bills to pay, we needed a new rack, we needed a new light, whatever. That came first before Dan and I got paid. Yeah. Because we're looking at the big picture here, right? The $1,000 freaking paycheck or whatever that we might want to get from Viper is, what does that really matter? What are you going to do? Yeah. That money can be used better inside the company. Yeah. Right? Invested in the company.
If you start paying too early, you pull the oxygen from your company. Think about that. If we would have started paying ourselves early on, more like to cover our rent and stuff, we wouldn't
have the cash we wouldn't have needed to survive.
We would have then had to route to investors or like, hey, we need more money to pay for all this shit that in all reality we don't need to get paid for. You know what I'm saying? So we want to bootstrap this. We didn't want to go outside investors. We're like, let's keep everything in the company. First year, it'll just drain our personal savings. And then once we hit that breaking point of like, okay, this is taking a toll, and the company starts making some cash, and we feel comfortable that it could like pay some to us.
Yeah.
At least it didn't even cover.
So did that take a year? Did that take a year and a half?
Took a year.
Okay.
Year and a half about.
I want to say it was like 16, 18 months. So like Dane and I sat down, what did we need to live month by month personally? And that's what we started out paying ourselves.
Okay.
Nothing above that. We were paying ourselves just enough for us to survive.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it worked out really good. It teaches you a lesson. It really does. It teaches you to be frugal and resourceful, because you have to. You don't have any money.
It teaches you that you don't need a lot of the shit that you have.
That's a very good point. It teaches you, what do you really need?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Everything else is just bullshit.
Fluff
that doesn't really matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need food, you need a house, and you need a supportive spouse. Those are the three things.
Yeah.
That's it.
100%.
You got to pay your
could
bills and shit
put
too.
that into a rhyme, by the way.
Yeah,
make a rap song.
Food, need a house and supportive spouse.
But honestly, in the beginning, now that I think about it, I don't think that after that year or 18 months, whatever it was, when we started paying ourselves, I don't think it was the full amount of covering our personal expenses. I'm pretty sure it was just a portion.
It wasn't.
We just like, okay, what's the max amount we could pay ourselves? And at this point, again, I'm living in a super small apartment. Like my only expenses are rent, groceries, and like, I don't know, that's pretty much it. So it's like,
yeah.
The
way you describe it doesn't sound like you were sitting around watching Netflix in your free time.
Right. So that first time we started paying ourselves, it was like, let's just say half or 75% of our personal expenses.
Okay.
And that was at a point where we felt comfortable that the company was in a position and was growing that we could do it. We wouldn't have done it if we didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, definitely not.
We also, during that conversation, discussed too of like, hey, let's just say we start paying ourselves and we need some cash, like we're both agreeing that we can cut it if we need to. Mm-hmm. Like we can cut our
we can
payments.
Withhold it for a few months.
Exactly.
Like
necessary.
I said, if necessary, to make sure the company gets what it needs to continue moving forward.
Okay.
So that was like the first time we started paying ourselves was about a year and a half in. And then fully paying like to cover expenses. I mean, still, I don't know.
I mean, to be quite honest, we're still not making that much. Like,
No.
For real. Compared to what people may think or what it may look.
Yeah.
We're not making, I don't think, probably where we should be. I'm fine with it. I totally am. Because I much prefer that watching that money grow the company than just sit in a bank account.
Yeah, I look at it this way. I don't know what I would do with it. Like, yeah, you can buy the flashy cars and stuff, but I would still be here every single day. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, to me, it's not. It really isn't about that. It's about blowing this thing up as big as we possibly can.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could invest it, right, in the stock market, do whatever, but why not invest it in yourself?
Or the company.
And invest it in the people. Yeah, in the
Definitely
company.
don't
That's what I mean.
right now.
Well, not right. Whatever. I don't even watch the stock market because all it is depressing, right? But why wouldn't you rather just invest in yourself, right? Because that's one thing that you can control. You invest in the stock market, whatever, that's all BS crap, like that's a whole different.
It's more luck than it is.
That's a whole different topic, or you invest in yourself, right? And it is a direct reflection of how much work you put in.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think that's much more rewarding. So.
Absolutely. So, didn't get paid much. Did the bare minimum. Covered a percentage of our monthly expenses about a year and a half in.
Okay.
And at this point, we did have an employee. So we had Drake.
Yep. So Drake was our first employee. He was our welder. So I have a previous relationship with Drake at my last job where he worked, and then he ended up leaving, going elsewhere, and we just kind of stayed in contact through this whole thing. I know he stayed in contact with our dad as well because he would occasionally need stuff welded. So shout out to Drake, is one of the best TIG welders that I've ever met.
This kid, he was what, 18, 19 when we brought him on?
Yeah, he was pretty young.
He was young, and he was like he's just a sharp dude. Like he's a problem solver, and
we'll have
like,
Drake on here.
Yeah, dude, that'd be awesome. He's a problem solver, and like he is an engineer at trade. Like when he puts together jigs and stuff, he's a
smart dude.
super cool. Not only that, but anyone listening that knows TIG and MIG, like TIG is like an art, and it takes a fine craft and a lot of experience to like lay nice TIG consistent beads. And he's just really good. So we knew he was good, and with that being an essential part of our product, so a lot of the piece or the backrest at this point, what was it? No, the rail.
Well, he started with the backrest because we were welding the backrest plate and the spine together.
Yep.
Because he was doing some rails, but then we outsourced the rails.
Yep.
Right. So he was doing primarily backrest and seat posts. Mm-hmm. Right. So he was coming in. I don't know if he was coming in part-time. We were just paying him cash on the side because we couldn't afford to have an employee, right, on the books. So we were just paying him cash. And he would come in after work. I think he was a chef, right? Yeah. So one of his other passions is cooking. So he was a chef somewhere, and he would come in on weekends and after work during the week and
he had
weld
3
for
jobs.
us.
He was a hustler. So during the week, he was working at another metal fab company. Then he'd come to us after, and then on the weekends, he was a chef.
I might have that mixed up.
That's wild.
And then he would still. So yeah, he would we would get maybe 4 hours a day.
Yeah, if we were lucky.
Yeah, and that was when we brought him on. That was at a point too where we're like, do we even need a part-time welder? We didn't have enough work to do it, and we're like, last thing we want to do is hire somebody full-time
and then have to let them go.
Yeah, they're sitting like there's nothing worse than being at a job where you feel like you're just sitting around.
Yeah.
And that's what I would never want to do to anyone.
But we learned very fast that there was more than enough work for him to do.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think we've almost learned that almost with every single position that we've hired for thus far is that. So I'm a little more on the reserve side. I don't like to hire people until we're bursting at the seams. Yeah, which probably isn't the right way to look at it. But Dane's more forward thinking, hiring people ahead of time. So that's why we kind of mesh pretty good because if he's thinking too far ahead, I can reel him back a little bit. Or if I'm being too far behind, he can pull me forward a little bit, and then we can both come to an understanding that we need somebody.
There's pros and cons to both because if you're looking too short and you hire on urgency, you can make faulty hiring decisions because you're desperate
which we've
done before. And we've also done the opposite side of my side where you're looking too far ahead in the future and you hire for a position that you don't even need.
Right.
So that's where it, like Dylan said, it's good when you mesh because then you find a happy balance of like having a great amount of time in between where you do your research on each candidate coming in. Mm-hmm. So there's a podcast I was listening to actually yesterday that was talking about that. Every person you bring in, you want them to be more skilled than you.
Of course.
Because why else would you bring them on?
Yeah. Hire people that are smarter than you are.
Exactly.
That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
Sam
can take pretty good pictures. Yeah. But I mean, I got some iPhone pics here. He's
I love the shit. I love the shit.
Did you see Alex's post yesterday?
Yeah.
Dude, I love the banter between you two. That's the funniest.
It's pretty nonstop.
That's so funny. What do you say?
A robot that takes pictures?
Yeah. In case anybody watching hasn't seen our LA vlog,
dude.
We always give Alex shit because he kind of stands around sometimes. Or he's doing something on his phone, right? And
for long durations.
Yeah, and so there was when we were at Hoonigan in LA, I panned over while you guys were assembling some chairs, and Alex is just standing there texting
in the middle of the open.
It's like in the past area.
And like this is I can't. Sometimes you just can't predict this stuff, right? And I like panned over, and typically I'm like in my head I'm like looking for action. I'm looking for like something happening. And for whatever reason, like when I panned over to him and he's just standing there texting, I was like, maybe I'll just film and see how long he does this for, right? And like
it was like a minute.
Yeah, I mean it was probably more.
Started to run out of memory on the memory card.
Yeah. You got it. Put the clip in here.
Yeah, I will. We'll insert it. That's so funny. So I just like the effects are obviously added in post, but I just did like a little funny search for Alex, like what he was.
No, that was a screen share.
Yeah.
That was a screen share off his phone.
How to use a wrench. Ready
Why
to your lefty loose.
Why did my hands hurt after using tools?
Yeah. So.
Love you, Al.
Love you too, Al. He listens to all these.
Yeah. Oh, I know. He goes through and approves them.
He's gonna laugh. But yeah, picking up Drake, brought Drake on. brought him on part-time because we had like just the right amount of work for him to do part-time. And then like month after month, we started to get more and more busy because we're just investing in the business. We're learning. And we had another conversation like, hey, should we? And again, back then our conversations were like, hey, what do you think? Yeah, this is what I think. All right, cool, let's do it. It wasn't like a couple hour meetings. Sometimes we'd sleep on it and make an unemotional decision. But we were at the point where neither of us knew how to weld, and I didn't want to learn it. He didn't want to learn it, and we couldn't have our dad doing it anymore.
Yeah.
So he was doing a lot. Our dad was doing a lot of welding at this time too, right? So he was
already.
He was supposed to be retired, right? Quotations. But so like I remember meeting him halfway between Green Bay and Sturgeon Bay, picking up parts that he was welding, and I'm not gonna lie, dude, I felt terrible for making him do that. Like,
shout out to Dad if you're listening. Appreciate
man.
everything. Seriously, you're the man.
I feel like
appreciate everything. He still is involved.
I know. Well, he's still one of those people who like you can't like put his mind to sleep. Like he's always like thinking up the next thing or like planning for the next idea. Like I've only met a handful of people who remotely resemble like your dad. And while you guys have it, I think you have it in like a different way.
Yeah.
Like there is no shut off switch on your dad. Like when it comes to fabricating or planning or anything like that.
I seriously think his favorite thing to do at night is to mess around on SolidWorks.
Absolutely.
For like 2 hours before bed.
Like he's playing a video game.
Just like build stuff. Like,
he'll send us pictures late at night, like 8 or 9, be like, hey, I found a solution for this. When we were on Oil and Whiskey podcast.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about those ideas after? That next day at noon.
Next morning.
The next morning at like noon, he texted us 3 pictures of the products we were talking about. He's like, what do you guys think? I'm like,
that's fast.
I have to say, okay.
Really
so
damn.
I don't know if your dad qualifies himself as a creative person or not, but like I've met a lot of people who do photography, videography, and the people who have a genuine passion, like it like runs in their blood. Like there is no like.
Yeah.
I've tried to taper it down to be like a little bit to work with like regular schedules a little bit more.
Yeah.
But like I went with Trenton the other day, who's our photographer. We went up north to the UP. We came back. It was like 11:30 at night, and like dude doesn't like sleep because he's like, I have to see these pictures. And it's the same thing with your dad, where it's like once the idea has started, like it has to be completed.
Yeah.
It has to be done. Like, and I get the same way where it's like when I put a video on the timeline, it's like sometimes it just creates itself,
100%.
and I just have to be there to click the buttons to put it in place. And I think if you're a person who has a calling like that, like you almost can't shut it off while it's happening because otherwise you kill like whatever it is that
the sense of
that's
urgency.
That's passion, dude.
Yeah.
That's passion.
Yeah.
I think he loves it though. Like I feel like he genuinely loves it. Like think about that being a dad. Now that you're a dad, I mean he's not super old, but imagine
He's almost 4 months, so no, he's definitely not old.
So, but when he grows up, like imagine him, like if say you have another kid, if your 2 sons wanted to start a company, like would you not want to be involved in it?
I can
that'd be the
see
coolest
that it
thing
would
ever.
be the most rewarding feeling probably that you could ever have.
Yeah. The
honestly.
first being that your sons get together or
Right.
get along.
You
know? Like that's extremely rare, I feel, today. But he loves it. Dude, he still helps us to date. And like I love having him involved in it. Like taking him to California was so much fun. He just adds we don't have to change. He's a bro with our group.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
You know? He's one of
you
us.
guys, yeah.
And I love that he jabs at Alex too. Like he still tosses in jabs at Alex. He'll toss it at you as well. Like, oh, dude, I just love the guy. He's so funny. But like, I also love including him in stuff too because the groups that we're hanging out with, like Chip Foose and like Larry Chen, Roadster Shop, all those guys, like those are people that he's like worked with. Or not worked with, but like knew of and kind of like looked up to when he was on his upbringing and never really had the opportunity with his business to go and meet them. So like he's right now coming along with us.
It's almost like he took like a parallel path and like while he didn't get into like more of the public view. You know, he did like the business like aspect of it, and like all these people have used his machines. Like
everyone.
You know, like they're in the shops. Like you know, they know his product. They just don't know like the creator of it, which is it's kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, if he would have sold his own products, he would have like had a bigger face in the industry.
Yeah,
you know, because he went through Bailey, and Bailey kind of took that image. You know,
and you know he's just a super
but he didn't
humble,
want that.
just a super humble guy. You know, he doesn't want the attention. You know, he just wants to, you know, design a great product and do fun shit.
Yeah.
You know, like he doesn't need the
attention.
attention.
That's actually why I think it's so cool you guys invite him to be a part of so much, is because he gets to go on these trips and, you know, meet Chip Foose. Like meet, you know, one of the guys who's using, I don't know if Chip was using your dad's stuff, but like he knows the company. He knows, you know, the machines and everything like that. And so for your dad to meet him and then be able to talk fabrication, like
even
so
hooligans.
Cool.
Like
so
I remember
cool.
always up north, we'd watch Jim Cano videos, you know, and he was always showing us. But regardless of the fact, like he's awesome. Love having him involved, and the dude's just one of the smartest guys I know.
Yeah.
But like Dylan was saying in the beginning, he was doing welding for us because it was maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 a week that we needed. So he would just do them real quick one night. So anyone listening, Green Bay to where our dad lived is about like 45 minutes. And he would meet us halfway in the morning sometimes, and we'd go pick up 10 rails that would get us through that week. And it was a repetitive cycle like that for like probably 2 or 3 months, to the point where like I was texting him like, hey, I need 20 rails next week. He's like, how'd you go from 10 to 20? So like it got to the point where it was growing, and he's like, I could tell he was getting kind of like, okay,
you guys have to figure something out here because I'm not
growing?
doing.
Hire an employee.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not going to be doing this for much longer because I don't want to continue to weld. And then that's when, you know, kind of led us into Dylan's like, well, why don't we hire Drake? Like I knew Drake from RMD and all this previous stuff, and we trusted him, and he would come in part-time. Then that continued to get to a point where Drake was kind of getting overwhelmed with all of his jobs. I know he quit one of them. I think he quit like the metal fab job during the day, and then that's when we had the conversation. He was honest with us too. He came to us. He's like, hey guys, like I'm kind of overwhelmed right now. Do you guys want to hire me? Because either I'm going to come work for you or I'm going to continue with this metal fab. And we're like, all right, let's like take the jump.
Yeah.
You know. And then he came full time. And
so how long until Drake came on full time? Was it a year? How long was he doing the part time stuff? And then like when was the official like first employee?
It was, I want to say it was about right when I came on, a couple weeks after. So like April, May of 21.
Okay.
Yep.
Somewhere is when we hired him on full time. And then employee number 2, Alex.
Yep.
That's a great story too, which we should probably talk about when he's here and on.
Which will be next week.
We can go through his story because he's got a great story with how he came on to Viper, right? So it wasn't long after that either that we had Alex join too. So it was kind of cool. So like we held Viper as much as we could, just scraping by, and then eventually we're like, okay, this thing's, you know, we got to take it to the next step. So that's when I came on. That's when Drake came on. Alex came on. Like, boom, now we're a company, in quotes again, you know, like loosely.
We're filling positions that we didn't know how to do.
Yeah.
Like we didn't know how to weld, and then Alex came on, and he's like, "Hey man, I'll take care of like all social media." He was essentially he did everything. He was social media, photography, video. Like he would make, like he was the brand. You know, he's like, "I love the vision you guys have. Let me take what you have and let's expand on it." And like he had that
was in
visionary
Florida,
mindset.
right? So we're in Green Bay. He's in Orlando, Florida. Like it was a lot
It was tough. I'm not
for
gonna lie.
employee number 2 to be a remote employee. Like
Yeah.
Dane and I were like, I don't know how this is going to work, but what do we got to lose? Let's give it a shot.
We're
you know?
still thinking that. Yeah.
It took, I'd probably say, close to like 7 to 8 months to like fully trust.
Okay.
Because again, like you don't know who this person is. Like all you're doing is like phone calls every now and then. But after that, like first time meeting him, it was like, okay, this is our dude.
Yeah.
You know. And then once that trust was built, it's like game over. Like there's no doubt in my mind that the dude's not working 24/7 or wouldn't cancel everything on his plans to do something for Viper. You know.
Yep.
So like he built that trust. I appreciate everything he's done. And he's worked with us too. He understood it from our standpoint too of like, okay, I get you guys don't like the whole remote work thing, but here's kind of my situation here, you know, and that's one thing that we can touch point on too is conversations, like say what's on your mind and what you're going through. So then there's no like hidden feelings. And Alex was really good at that. Like if he ever had something on his mind of like, hey, I'm kind of upset with this, or hey, I need to talk to you guys about this, we were able to have a conversation and find a solution for it immediately.
Yeah.
You know, which has built the relationship, helped build the relationship tenfold. Yeah. You know, it builds even more trust when you can have great communication, you know. Another thing about him, and we could talk more when he's here, but like he took this company like his own. Like he took it like his baby. And that's where some more trust was built also, because it's like this dude's thinking like he's doing everything for this company, how he's responding to people, what he's posting about, like what he's doing at night, as if it was his own, which was super honorable to see. Yeah. And he still does to this date, and I love that. But yeah, so brought Drake on. What'd you say? So that'd be a year and a half about for our first employee-ish.
Almost a year.
Year and a quarter. And then that's when Dylan and Drake came on. And then Alex came on.
Not long after that. It was like May or June.
May or June of 21.
Okay.
And then at that point, we brought Levi on. Levi was another welder because this is when I started to pick up steam. So like Drake came on. We finally got a website built. Like we started doing advertising and everything of that sort. We hired an agency to start doing our advertising. So things were actually starting to pick up a little bit.
Okay.
And then we needed another welder. So hired on Levi.
Yep, and then Dustin was right behind him too, because up to this point, like Dane and I are still packaging the orders. Like we're still doing everything, you know. So Drake's welding, he's doing the fab stuff, right? And Dane and I are still packaging orders, managing the business. You know, even though it's a small business, there's still management that needs to be done. Answering customers, like communicating with vendors, still doing all that. And then, because remember, we would go in the afternoons after lunch, we would go out and box, we would go out and package. And we would do that, I don't know, until 6, 7 o'clock at night until UPS came and picked up.
Sometimes we were there till like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Many nights.
Yeah. But like once I got there so when I came to Viper full time, it definitely changed, you know, almost instantly. Like I noticed your stress went way down because obviously a whole other person's there to take a lot of the workload, right? But like, and then with me being there all day too, we could get so much more done. Yeah. Right. Instead of me showing up, getting there at 4:30 after my full-time job. Right.
I gotta say that, dude. We were boxing machines. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, dude. We would race.
Dylan and I out of line, dude. We could hammer some orders.
We would time each other to see who could box chairs up the fastest.
That does not surprise me in the slightest.
Every part of it too. Like who could tape the box. The main box the fastest. Like
we did the Viper Olympics over a year ago. Yeah, and that was like assembling and putting together orders and stuff like that. So.
But again, thank God for Nicole. Oh man, wrapping those back rests. But so it got to the point where Dylan and I were getting overwhelmed with how much stuff we were doing, and we didn't want to be. We want to work on the business, not necessarily in it, and we always have been progressing to get out of inside it, so we can bring people on that are better than us at doing it, you know. So then Drake got overwhelmed. He's like, dude, there's a lot of stuff to weld. Like I can't keep up. Again, I didn't want to do it. Dylan didn't want to do it. We hired on Levi, which again, almost all of our first hires besides Alex were from word of mouth.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Or word of mouth, or from people we knew before. And
we couldn't afford any hiring agencies or anything like that, or even Indeed. You know, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, they still charge you $400 or $500 to post stuff, right? We can't afford that.
So we brought on Dylan Drake in beginning of 2021. Then Alex came on in about the middle of 2021. Levi came on right around that time as well, because I remember it was super hot in that facility.
June 2021 is when Levi came on. Duddy was about that same time too.
Yep.
And then we had, we ran with that for a little while till September. I know. I remember this because I was HR, right? I was doing all the paperwork and
Yeah.
getting everything filed at the state and stuff like that for them. And we had a couple that didn't work out in between there, right? So, and rightfully so, because I mean, like, I always looked, one of my biggest concerns was, how the hell are we going to find employees when we're just a little startup business? Like, we don't have no 401k, we have no benefits, we have no health insurance, like, we don't have PTO. Like, how are we going to find good people? You know, when it was word of mouth, like Dane just said. You know,
You trust, if you know somebody and you can trust them and they're going to, our biggest thing was, hey, if you show up and like you give it all you have, you're hired, you know? And what is that saying you always say? Like, the devil you know is.
The devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so like we knew these people and we knew where they could grow and we were willing to accept that versus hiring
Not
somebody.
saying all of our first hires were.
Well, no. No. I'm saying like
but
everybody has an area to grow.
It's easier to bring on somebody you know than it is to take a gamble on
Somebody
you don't.
Right.
Exactly.
Right? And that's all the saying is basically just like, you know, it's like it's the same reason why people stick in shitty marriages.
You know what you're getting.
Don't leave crappy jobs. Like, you know what it is, and you know the unknown is scarier than shit sometimes. So
So
that's
were 2020. The end of 2021 was huge for us.
It happened. A lot of stuff happened really fast.
There was a few key things that happened that I can honestly say, like, made or break Viper.
Projectile Viper into what it is now.
So the first being is we had three things happened. The first being we had a massive military order that came in.
Okay.
Out of nowhere,
the Air Force,
the United States Air Force contacts us, and one of their buying agents or managers for this, like, just if anybody has worked with the government, it is insane how massive these camps are or these stations are. And he's like, hey, I have this station and we need, 200?
Well, they ordered twice. So the first order was only like 50, right? Or 80, and then it was like 120 or something like that.
Yeah.
But those POs helped grow Viper, like, for real. So, like, they were building a new Air Force base somewhere, and they wanted these chairs for their maintenance hangars and their hangars and stuff to work on the aircraft. And they placed the initial order. They loved them so much. You know, they were even having problems with them being stolen. Remember the purchasing guy told us, he's like, they're great, but the only problem is they disappear. They had to start putting serial numbers on them because people were stealing them.
So now that I think about it, this was right when you came on, because I remember this.
I remember talking about it.
This was right when you came on, because I remember talking to you on the phone when you were still at Dad's about it.
Yeah, and I'm like, how can we get a ride in an F-16?
Yeah. So
we're still asking that question, yeah.
How can I still get a ride in an F-16?
There was a ton of learning curves with this as well, though, because, we got the biggest order to us. 80 chairs to us or whatever it was like 4 months worth, if not more, at that point.
For sure.
So for us we had to finance it all. So that's huge for a startup company to have to pay for everything, and then it's net 30. Actually, with them, I think it was like, was it net 30 or net 60 or something like that?
I don't recall.
Whatever it was. But so
you're like holding your breath, hoping to get that money back in a decent amount of time.
Exactly. So we fulfilled everything, and now the bills are catching up with us, and we try to plan it to where, like, the bills are due right when we get the payment, because then you could obviously have the cash to pay it. But that order helped us tremendously, and then that was a huge factor of you coming on too. You felt way more confident with it after that order. I remember that. It's all coming back. Then once they got them, he's like, dude, I love these. These are exactly what we're looking for. I'd like to buy 120 more, but we don't want to assemble them.
We don't want to put them together.
And
they were the Premier Aluminum Axes, or Premier Aluminums, no backrest. So the aluminum chairs have more hardware and take a little bit longer to put together.
Yeah.
So we're like, obviously, we're not going to say no to the order. So we're like, okay, yeah. So
dude, I forgot about all this.
Now we're like, okay. Me and Dana look at each other like, how the fuck are we going to put together 120 chairs?
So did you go there?
On top of the orders?
No.
Okay.
So they wanted us to put it. Okay. So the first order we sent to them, they thought it was assembled. So there must have been some miscommunication. And he got them, and he's like, hey, man, these are awesome. We love them. We're going to put another order in. However, we didn't know that we had to assemble them.
Yeah,
And
he's
I-
like, whatever it costs, just
Yeah.
the labor, because we're like, obviously we are going to have a lot of labor tied in this. He's like, whatever it costs, just, we want him to assemble.
And again,
So
at
we're
this
like,
point, we
okay.
don't have. I remember this. We only had Drake. I'm pretty sure it was like Drake and Alex.
No, Levi was there because I
Oh, yeah,
remember.
Levi was there. Yep.
Remember,
won.
when we get into this or whatever. So, anyway, long story short, we end up getting a PO. We end up, planning to make 120 chairs, which is the most we've ever made at one time ever. So. I remember on multiple occasions I loaded up the beast with the trailer.
Dude.
Drake and I took rails and we went up to our dad's place where
Yep.
the legs for the chair are CNC machined up there. And I was running the CNC machine and getting parts ready. And Drake was welding rails up there
Yep.
and drilling the holes and tapping the rails. And we were working up there for multiple days, to get this order
And
done.
we're putting like a lot of we have almost like an assembly line on. So we have our dad's huge trailer, and we made it into an assembly line on it.
So we need a
have
huge area to work on
stages,
this stuff, right?
And it like our fingers were like
Bleeding.
raw because you're twisting the bolts to get them started and then putting them together with
Yep.
with power tools. And 120 chairs, people might be thinking like, okay, it's not that much, dude. With the amount of bolts on these chairs for this
Yeah.
took us like I'm pretty sure it was like 3 or 4
I remember you
full
and I
days.
ripped it till like midnight.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was
Because at
pretty
that
intense.
point, it was I had nothing else to do, and this is make or break it.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm gonna put whatever needs to be put in to get this order done. And it was fun, and it was exciting, and it was like you wanted to get it out the door. And one of the most difficult parts of that project that we overlooked too. Actually, no, I think we built it in there.
We planned out the
was
crating
building
it.
the crates. So now you have these chairs that we're sitting on need to be shipped to them.
Mm-hmm.
And
without being damaged.
without being damaged.
So here's the assembly line. I don't know if you can put.
Yeah, that'd be cool if you could put it. I would
Okay.
love that.
What I think we'll do.
We'll send you everything.
Yeah.
We'll just put it in a Google
So
file.
we're gonna wrap. We're already closing in on an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we could
So
wrap it up
we'll-
and talk about this next
Yeah,
time. Because there's.
yeah.
So
before I
the
forget,
end of 2022 did have tremendous growth, or 21.
yeah.
Yeah, 21.
So there was. We'll end it here. There was 2 events that happened on top of that as well. Is one, we didn't have anywhere to ship it, which is when we found this facility,
Okay.
which we'll talk about.
Yep.
And the second is Dylan got an email from a company saying, hey, we want 1,500 chairs.
Mm-hmm.
And ended up making a purchase for 1,000 chairs at a point when we
That's whack.
had our old 3,000 square foot facility.
Mm-hmm.
And 1,000 chairs was impossible to assemble there. So we'll talk it on the next one of how that unfolded.
That's a hell of a cliffhanger. You guys going from 200 to 1,000? Like that assembly line looks crazy. I don't know if I've ever heard this story.
Yeah, so we'll go into it on the next one of the 1,000 chair order.
Damn.
But like the end of from June to December of 2021.
Look at them all. We stacked them on top of each other.
Insane.
Yeah, that order, like,
Oh my gosh.
was what helped Viper
Absolutely.
get anywhere. Honestly, it gave us the
Wow.
cash flow we needed to continue to invest.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about how we got that 1,000 chair order, and we'll talk about how we got it done in
Absolutely.
a building.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be
So
a full story. For
It is a cliffhanger because
Yeah.
like we got that. There was a caveat to that PO, right? They were supposed to be Christmas gifts.
Oh, yeah, dude.
They first reached
Oh.
out to us in September, like mid-September, right? And they wanted them all before Christmas.
Wow.
1,000 chairs.
1,000 chairs. We've never sold 1,000 chairs ever.
And it's in Viper's eternity probably
Ever.
at that point.
And they're like, hey, we
At
need
its infancy.
we need
yeah.
we need them in 2 months, and we're in a 3,000 square foot facility. So
This
we'll
is
talk
where,
about
like,
that.
as a cliffhanger, you'd be like, and that's where we. Oh, and anyways, cut into commercial break. Yeah. We'll be right back after.
So
A shameless plug of Viper Energy.
Viper Energy has all 9 essential amino acids. It has no artificial flavoring, no artificial coloring, no artificial sweeteners. This drink is extremely healthy and beneficial for you. Not only that, but it has 150 milligrams of natural caffeine topped with L-theanine. When you combine these two together, you get an absolute tunnel vision focus. I'm extremely excited for you guys to try it. I'm excited to get it out to the world because it's been such a long project. We stand behind this product and are extremely excited to get it in your hands. So thanks for listening. Catch you next time.